Well, actor Kevin Sorbo has been speaking out on this. He joins us now live with reaction. Kevin, great to have you with us. Tell us about why you decided to speak out, first on what's happening in New York.
Well, you know, it's amazing to me. They applauded him. They gave him basically a standing ovation when he signed this law. And the audacity of the left, you just had a segment on there talking about the wall. They tell us building the border wall is immoral, but killing a baby right at 9 months is okay, and that's fine. You know, there's a group of people about 70 years ago that decided what lives were worth living, what lives were not, and they were called the Nazis. I mean, it's incredible to me how far this country has fallen into such a weird, weird space. It's just sad.
Well, and you...
Shannon, there's a heartbeat at 22 days. At 22 days, there's a heartbeat. If that's not a life, then tell me what it is. Okay? You look back over the last century. If you want to talk a little history, unfortunately, we don't teach history anymore in schools. But if you look at the history, close to 100 million babies have been terminated. Their lives have been terminated in the wombs. Women, I do a lot of speaking events. I do a lot of pro-life speaking events across the country. I've been doing about 7 years now. People can go to kevinsorbo.net and check it out if they want me to come to their state. But you look at what's going on with these women that want abortions. They talk them into doing a sonogram. Of 100% people that want abortions and they do that sonogram, 80% change their mind. You know why? They hear a heartbeat and they realize that heartbeat is not their own. 80%. We got to get more of these sonograms out there. It's very important for people to realize what's going on inside their bodies.
What kind of reaction are you getting? What kind of response? I mean, you don't seem to be shy at all about sharing your positions there in Hollywood.
No, I'm sure. I'm gonna get it from the other side. Of course I am. I get it all the time. I mean, I've had people call for my death because I believe in God, you know. So, I mean, it's incredible to me what people do and go crazy about over the stupid and silliest things to me. All I can tell you right now is that I love Reagan's quote. I got to say with Reagan's quote, I love what he said. He goes, "I've noticed that everyone who's for abortion has already been born." So to me, that says a whole page full right there of where we're at and what's going on in this country. And it's just sad and pathetic to me that they use this as an excuse to terminate people's lives. People, it's not pro-choice. Baby's not getting a choice in here. It's either life or death. And most people that are obviously in the pro-choice world, they're choosing death.
First, let us remember the power of loving kindness, that we may comfort the men and women who have made these decisions willingly or under duress. That pro-life will not only be a political stance or an argument, but a way of life for all of us. To be pro-life should be all-encompassing. From conception to the grave, standing for life includes victims of sex trafficking and abuse, the hungry, the poor, the disadvantaged, as well as the elite. Secondly, let us remember our commitment to justice, that those who take innocent life be held accountable, and that these lives will never be forgotten under the guise of choice. That we stay the course on days when the fire inside us burns, as well as days when the ember flickers. In many respects, this battle may seem never-ending, but never forget that the goal is worth the effort. I stand with you in defense of the voiceless, the preborn, which are our most precious gifts. Thirdly, let us remember the call to righteousness, knowing that we ultimately answer to a higher calling, and that no matter what we have done in the past, grace, which is my daughter's name, grace is sufficient to cover our many faults. In a time of relativism, we must remain convinced that truth is greater than any trend. And because of this, we are compelled passionately to engage our culture without compromise. Now, men, are you men out there? Men. Men, it is past time that we be the leaders, caretakers, and providers that we were meant to be. We as men must stand up for the lives of the innocent and their mothers in crisis. Hey, as important as women have been in championing this cause, You men, us men, must rise up and lead the charge. Even if it wasn't demonstrated for you by a father, you can be different. You can change the course of generations. Men, we can be silent no more. Looking out, I see a sea of collective humanity. But looking closer, I see individuals who have their own spheres of influence. This is the power of one. It is the power of influence to influence people in our neighborhoods, in our churches, in our workplaces, on our teams. It is also the power to unite, as we have today, as one, for a common cause to end the unthinkable practice of abortion in the United States of America.
First got cast for the film, I had 5 hours to get on a plane to fly out to Oklahoma for 8 weeks. I only had time to tell 3 people, my husband, my sister, and my son. So on the 4th day that I was on set, my mother called me, and I went on to tell her where I was and what I was doing, and I was really hesitant to share Abby's story because when I was younger, my mother told me that she had had an abortion when she was in high school. And as I started telling her about Abby's testimony and what the film was about, she got very emotional, which I kind of expected, but she was just weeping and sobbing through the phone, and it was just a really powerful moment. And I said, "Mom, what's wrong?" And she said, "Ashley, I need to tell you something that you've never heard before." She said, "What you don't know is that when I was 19, I went to an abortion clinic. My name was called. I was in the room. I got examined by a very pregnant nurse, and I got very sick, and I knew that I couldn't go through with it. And I got up and I walked out, and I chose you. I had intended to abort you, and I got up and I walked out." And what's so powerful about that experience is that I never knew. I had no idea. And here I was in Oklahoma on set to tell one of what I think is the greatest pro-life stories of our time. And I never knew. So it was so evident to me. And I still just feel so overwhelmed when I tell it, because I believe that God plans our steps from conception. And for me to be standing here and to have that come full circle, I just feel so humbled that God loves us that much, that He would give me, this nobody, the opportunity to tell this story, that He cares for us so personally.
But with everything, did you ever think of, not having a baby?
Kinda, sort of, and then again, it's just like, no, I just didn't want to deal with the whole abortion thing. I just didn't want to.
The regret of it, probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't want to, and it's just like, you know what? I'm a grown woman. I'm 25 years old. I'm gonna say it in the most humblest way. I'm a schmillionaire. You know what I'm saying?
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm prepared for this.
I love what Remy Ma said, though, too, because it is true for women. Men have kids, continue with their career, nothing stops. And for women, it's so different. They try to act like, oh, if you have a baby, it's the height of everything. But it is proof that you can be pregnant, have a baby, and still be at the height of everything.
Yeah, you know what? It just really bothers me, and it disgusts me, because I see a lot of women online like, oh, I feel sorry for you, or your career is over. And it's like, why can't I have both? Like, as a woman, why can't I have both? Like, why do I gotta choose a career or a baby? Like, why can't I have both?
Yeah, men never have to choose.
Well, those are the people that's rooting against you anyway, though. So they want to see you fail anyway.
And you absolutely can. I mean, you're showing it now. You absolutely positively can.
But it's not even people that, like, not rooting for me. Like, a lot of people around me was concerned. Like, it's like, I don't think it could happen. This never really happens. And it's like, I don't want to wait until I'm 30 something to have a kid. Like, I want my kid now. I want it for me.
Are you regretting letting people know you was pregnant? Since Saturday?
You're free.
I feel free. People were gonna find out anyways. My body's changing, and I have so much work to do. But if I could have chose a different way, I wouldn't even let anybody know, because I don't want to hear people's opinions, and I don't want people to make me feel like a blessing should be a regret. I don't want to feel like that, and I don't want the negative energy on my baby.
There are a lot of celebrities in Hollywood, a lot of actors who are promoting or supporting Planned Parenthood, which is America's largest abortion provider. Do you think that kind of plays in at all to Hollywood elites pushing for abortion?
Of course. I think it's really interesting, because I mean, they have a problem with capital punishment. They have a problem with the death penalty, but a baby or a life that is so pure doesn't have any meaning. That should say how evil our world has become, that someone who hurts other individuals, kills people, or does something that's completely wrong and just should be abolished, in my mind, somehow holds more value than a very pure, innocent life that was just a circumstance, and it wasn't their choice of this circumstance, or whatever the circumstances are. And all of them are different that I know. I know many, because that's been my world. And to have friends that I know make choices that they didn't want to make, and forced into things that they didn't want to do due to the fact that they'd lose their job. One of my friends specifically, she actually went forward with something because it was told you were going to lose your job, and she did that and married the guy later, got pregnant again, and said, I can't do this again. It's the same guy, I love him, and we're married now, and I can't do this. And she was subsequently fired for having a baby.
Wow. So the first time this was after she had an abortion, and then she got pregnant again.
When she was I mean, these are young women that I know. You know, when we're talking about, I started in the music business when I was 12 years old. So, 21 years later, I'm about to be 33 at the end of this month. It's crazy to me that I've had such a lifespan in this world of seeing amazing things where you can really affect the world in a positive way, and such pain and insecurities, and affecting their lives forever. And knowing a situation like that just makes you, she was young at the time. She was young, but still, I mean, she's now married and has a beautiful child, and that child would have, and it does have a sibling, it's just not here.
Two weeks before I was making this film, the director called me from New York. Are you rehearsing? I told him we don't have the actors. So my character is very quiet, and he listened. But in order for me to rehearse this role, I needed to do it with the actresses. So I ended up going to an abortion clinic. When I arrived that morning, I forgot about the film. I was in shock when I saw all these young ladies, 15, 16, 17-year-old girls going in with their faces, with their tears, that I was so frustrated because I wasn't trained to do anything. So then I saw this little group outside trying to convince them not to do it. So I just told them I'm here to help. Next thing you know, this lady came to me from the group and tells me, you know what, this couple, they don't speak English, you want to talk to them? I mean, I jumped like oh, what am I gonna? I didn't want to sound like, oh, I didn't know what to say. So I said, sure. Next thing you know, they were in front of me. This couple, very, very poor, from Mexico, from Puebla. They didn't speak English, and they recognized me from the soap operas. All of a sudden, I end up talking to them for like 45 minutes about life, about faith, about Mexico, about their dreams, about their jobs, about everything. I gave them a little teddy bear and I gave them a little carriola. How do you say carriola stroller? She started crying, and they left. They didn't go in. Finally, I moved to New York. I finished the film, and when I came back to Los Angeles, I received a call months later from the man who was with her. Eduardo, this is Javier, and I have great news. My boy was born yesterday, and I want to ask your permission because I would love to call him Eduardo. I just put the phone down, and I couldn't even talk. It's the most noble thing I've ever done in my life. It changed my life. It was beautiful. When I went to the hospital and I met the baby, and weeks later I was having Eduardito in my hands, it was beautiful. And by the grace of God, I was able to save this baby.
You've been public that you have not always been pro-life. You've written it was a gradual process. Tell us about that process.
I think as a father of 6 kids, and 4 of my kids being adopted, has certainly played into the growing love that I have for everything that has to do with the life of children. So it turns out that my wife is an adopted child herself, so is her brother. And when we started our family, we decided that we wanted to adopt a child. And so we adopted our first son, and then 2 little girls, and then our second son, and then had 2 natural-born children. And I think about the fact that I have so much of a treasure in my family today, and that none of them would exist if it weren't for people who loved life and encouraged mothers with unexpected pregnancies to give birth to their children. My whole family was just one appointment away from not existing. And so as a husband and as a father, I've grown in my love for life and my appreciation for those who come up alongside moms and tell them, you can do this.
That really puts it into perspective. Kirk, why do you think it is, with all of the information that we have on abortion and the truth about life, why do you think there are still so many people who don't consider themselves pro-life? What's the disconnect there?
I think that really does say a lot. I think at the end of the day, we're all pro-life. It's just that it's usually our life that we want to design to be the best that we perceive it could be. So sometimes that includes a pregnancy, and other times it might not include a pregnancy. But at the end of the day, my value system says that all life is precious, and I think that at the end of the day, when I talk with people who have been who have received an abortion, people who are considering abortions, people who have chosen to give their children life, I think at the end of the day, we all know that life is precious, that it's a gift from God.
You've transformed your career, Kirk, into now making films for the family. Can you speak about why that is important to you and the role the family in particular plays in the pro-life movement and into building a culture of life?
So we hear the terms pro this, pro that, or anti this or anti that, and when I hear pro-life, I think, boy, that really ought to encompass everything from the womb to the tomb, right? From the cradle to the grave. So if I'm pro-life, that means I'm pro-baby, I'm also pro-mom, I'm pro-dad, I'm pro-lives, I'm pro-family, I'm pro-life, because life is better than death. And so I've tried to focus my career and even my time off the screen on things that really promote life in the arenas of faith and family, and also the kinds of values that produce freedom in our country. And I think they all go really nicely together. They fit like a hand in glove, and they're all connected. Faith, family, and the liberties and freedoms that we enjoy in this country to be able to pursue both of those things.
Tell me about a boyfriend. Who stands out in your mind?
When I was in TLC, the first producer that we worked with was Dallas Austin. I was in the relationship. I got pregnant, first time, and I didn't have the support, and so I was so scared, and I didn't know what to do, and chose to not have it. One of the biggest mistakes.
Why was it the biggest mistake?
Because I didn't want to do that.
Did you feel forced?
I'm 20. My career hadn't even really started, you know, so how do I do all that?
Yeah.
How can I be a mommy? It messed me up. I don't know. It broke my spirit. That's what it did.
It changed you from what to what?
I feel like I became, like, I don't know, kind of like, not my strong self anymore. I felt like I gave in and I broke to what someone else wanted. And I would break down and I would just cry. Because, I can't believe I'm crying. Because I wasn't a mommy. I cried almost every day for almost 9 years. And then I was caught up, I had to have the baby. And I had to fix it. And the only way I could fix it was with that person. I could only have this baby with him because the baby that I didn't have was with him. As time went on, I was just able to break away from the relationship because I knew that he was always being true to himself. I was not. I was compromising who I was as a person to please this person. And I think so many women do that. You shouldn't, but whatever, it happens.
When actress Michelle Williams won a Golden Globe last month, she credited her success in part to a past abortion. Immediately, pro-lifers responded to the speech, but for this week's Pro-Life Focus, we're highlighting one response in particular that was truly a labor of love.
This obviously is not what I planned on doing or saying, but it was on my heart, so I'm going to say it, especially in light of what Michelle Williams said at the Golden Globes. I am here getting ready to deliver my 5th baby, and I want to let all you women know, all you young ladies who haven't had babies or maybe listening to what the culture says about birth and women and babies and choice, babies don't keep us from our dreams. I'm getting ready to deliver a baby that will not keep me from my professional growth, but will make me better because of it. And I'm so honored and excited, and I can't wait to have this baby.
That is former model turned Catholic speaker Leah Darrow, who posted this powerful message on her Instagram account during her early stages of labor for her 5th baby, not long after Williams' pro-abortion speech. Her response to Williams was a simple one. Babies don't keep you from your dreams, they make lives better. And joining us now via Skype from St. Louis, Missouri is Leah Darrow herself, who in addition to being a Catholic author and speaker is also the founder of Lux University, an online Catholic formation program for women. Leah, first off, congratulations on the birth of your 5th baby, your son Valor, who's also joining us here. I am blown away. You shared this beautiful message while you were in the early stages of labor. How and when did it occur to you to hit record on your phone and share this truth from the hospital?
I can only credit, honestly, the Holy Spirit. It was on my mind when I saw the Golden Globes and Michelle Williams, and obviously her words hurt. I think all of our hearts. I think I hurt for her, that she felt and believed the lie that this choice of abortion is what helped her achieve dreams. And it doesn't. It hurts us. And the bottom line is that if we have to take life to achieve our dreams, they're the wrong dreams.
Yeah. Leah, after you posted this video and your son was born, you invited women online to share their babies and dreams story. It garnered hundreds and hundreds of responses. Leah, can you tell us, how has being a mom to 5 babies helped you to enrich your dreams?
They are my dream. I mean, bottom line, I mean, that's the point, is that no baby keeps you from what the Lord has planned for you. And sure, plenty of my children have rearranged my dreams, and they've helped me with my priorities to put people over things. But that's the whole point, is that children, life itself is not a hindrance to what the Lord has in store for us.
Amen. Leah, this week you announced a new initiative called Life Actually Is. Tell us about it and your vision for this social media movement.
Absolutely. So unfortunately on social media, there is a campaign, a pro-abortion campaign that says abortion actually, and they have the audacity to say that abortion is power, abortion is healing, abortion is respect, love, compassion, you name it, all of these lies. And they're spinning this lie to young women everywhere. And so I want to not just say that abortion is actually killing life, but what is the benefit of life? And so life actually is healing. Life actually is love. And so we're responding to that abortion initiative with what life is. And so we're asking all people to use the hashtag life actually is, and then to share your story of life, however the Lord has brought life into your life, babies into your life, and to respond and show truth to women so that they know that life is worth it.
That is beautiful. And finally, Leah, you posted your video in response, as we mentioned, to Michelle Williams' Golden Globe speech, when the actress essentially claimed she would not have received that award if she had not gotten her past abortion. Leah, what do you want to say to a woman who might be watching, who might believe that same lie?
Plain and simple, it's just a lie. If we have to take life, our dreams are not in the right priorities of it. And that's impossible. I don't know why we can't all get behind the fact that we shouldn't kill children. We just shouldn't kill babies. I think that's the bottom line. There's a lot of reasons, biological, theological, of why you should be pro-life. But the bottom is, I just don't think that we should have to kill people to make our lives better.
That is such a powerful point. Leah, thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time to joining us today and for welcoming our viewers to Valor for his first TV interview. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
God bless. Thank you, Leah.
I was always in the pro-life movement. My mother was very involved in the pro-life movement when we were kids. As soon as she heard about Roe versus Wade, she mobilized all of us. And that was the first time that they were political, my parents, in New York. So I come from a pro-life family.
How is that received by fellow actors and actresses? It's not very common someone from Hollywood comes out and says they are pro-life.
Well, I'm pretty much from the New York area, so it's film and television and also stage. So I've done a lot of stage work. And it isn't common, but it's a wonderful opportunity to talk about it. So people usually get to know me as an actor first, and then we enjoy each other's company and we enjoy the work. And then when it comes up in a sort of natural fashion, they're sometimes surprised, but we already have each other's respect, so there's an opportunity for dialogue.
Maybe more willingness to hear you out and listen to you in that regard.
That they're actually meeting one of them, one of those pro-lifers. And you know, I've been very, you know, pro-woman and pro-child and very nonviolent. So there's actually kind of a lot of things for us to talk about.
Speaking of that, you are an honorary board member of the group Feminists for Nonviolent Choices.
Yeah.
Would you say it does go hand in hand, being a feminist and being pro-life?
Oh yeah. It was the early tenements of the American feminist movement to be pro-child. It was you know, Elizabeth Cady Stanton and in the Revolution, and the other early American feminists were all pro-life. They never would consider separating a woman from the life of her child, ever. And, you know, woe to the man who puts that upon her, to quote Stanton. So now I just think the biggest need is for us to get the word out there that we are pro-woman and pro-child and non-violent. So whatever the reasons are for a woman to seek an abortion in the first place, let's get to those root causes. Let's make her feel safe and pursue her education and get her health care and get her job placement and help her take care of her baby.
Margaret, what would you say to young actors and actresses who might be hesitant to enter the industry if they're Catholic and they're pro-life and they're afraid that maybe their views wouldn't be respected? Would you have an encouraging word for them?
If you're afraid, don't go into this industry. If you're afraid, you're in the business of being rejected. That's what you do most often for a living as an actor. I don't hold it against the people who hire me, their political views, and I don't expect them to hold mine against me when they hire me. If I'm good for the job, I'm good for the job. I don't think the workplace is a place all the time for a political exchange. When it happens, you do it with respect. You know, if you're pro-life, you should respect each other. So if you're afraid, don't go into the business. Do something else. And you are who you are. You know, you're good enough. We are good enough. So if your views are that life begins at conception, then explore that and kick that around happily with people, whatever work you do for a living. Whatever you do for a living.
Mr. Yet was an award-winning journalist who had earned a master's degree from Indiana University, was a U.S. Air Force veteran of the Korean War, and served as Special Assistant for Civil Rights to the Director of the U.S. Office of Economic Opportunity. He was also a professor of journalism at Howard University and a columnist for several magazines and newspapers. In 1968, Yet had become the first African-American reporter hired by Newsweek magazine, and he quickly became their Washington, D.C. bureau correspondent. But then 3 years later, he wrote a book that exposed high-level plans within the United States to use birth control and abortion as instruments of black genocide. Then immediately after his book was released to the public, Yet was called into his supervisor's office and fired. At that meeting, he was informed that his dismissal had been orchestrated by the Nixon White House. The next year, Yet told the New York Times that pressure had been put on Newsweek to get him out of Washington. Then later, despite the fact that his book was selling well, had received at least 2 national awards, and was being used as a textbook in over 100 colleges, Yet's publisher dropped him and the book went off the market. What's important to recognize about this situation and others like it was that this family planning cartel was sending a message to those who might have influence within the African American community, whether they were politicians or journalists or college professors or civil rights leaders. They were being warned that when it comes to population control, they only had 2 options. They could either get on board with it or they could keep their mouths shut. And when people like Samuel Yet told them what they could do with their 2 options, they paid a price that few others had the character or the courage to pay.
One of the gold medals that you won in a relay was 2008, and
Yeah.
you reveal in this book that you had an abortion 2 weeks before that
Yeah.
Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Why did you want to reveal that very personal moment in the book?
The truth is, it's an issue that's not really talked about, especially in sports. And a lot of young women have experienced this. Like, I literally don't know another female track and field athlete who hasn't had an abortion. And that's sad. And so for me, I'm hoping that this will open up some discussions to helping especially a lot of young women who were in my situation not experience what I did.
Why do you think it's so pervasive? You said you do not
Yeah.
know another female track athlete
Yeah.
who hasn't had one.
I think because at that time in your life, when you're in college, you know, you don't feel comfortable talking to your mom. And so a lot of the information you get are from your peers. And I mean, it's going to sound silly to some people, but, you know, like in our community, people don't want to take the pill because you put water weight on. And of course, as an athlete, you want to be able to stay as fit and as healthy as possible. And then people tell you, well, when you're extremely fit, you can't get pregnant because our cycles are shorter. So there's a lot of miseducation that happens to young women in college because we're educating ourselves. And so I didn't know all of my options, and I had been fortunate up until that point. My husband and I had been dating for 5 years. I was engaged to him. I had no mishaps prior. And so I was just put in a really, really, really tough situation. And you know, for me, it was so much more than the physical. I mean, of course, you can imagine after the procedure, I wasn't even supposed to run. The doctors told me to take 14 days off. I didn't have 14 days. But it was more for me about the spiritual and emotional part of the experience that I wanted to share, because it wasn't until even I started this journey that I uncovered some of the hurt that was still there, and, you know, and really trying to forgive myself. I knew that God had forgiven me for it, but really forgiving myself for that choice and really moving on. And now that I'm going to be a mother, and now that God has blessed me again, I felt like I needed to kind of purge myself of that and hopefully help others do the same.
You mentioned also that, you know, your husband, Aaron Ross, who played in the NFL as a Super Bowl champion, that he was in training camp at the time. So you had to go through this alone. And it still put a strain on your marriage. How'd you guys get through that?
Well, you know, so what ended up happening was when I called him, because he was in Albany at training camp, you know, I could feel the hurt in his voice. And I mean, he was there for me as much as he could be, but it was something that we kind of never talked about. It was almost like if we don't talk about it, it didn't happen. And so my mom came with me, and I'm emotional talking about it now, but you know, but for so much of my relationship, I felt like I experienced it by myself. And so when Ross and I finally like dealt with it, you know, I was able to see his hurt, you know, and he thought for a long time maybe we were being punished because we hadn't gotten pregnant again. And, you know, a lot of times, sometimes you believe those lies when you know, make poor choices and you want to live your life a certain way. And so it was really freeing for both of us when we said, you know what, God, we really want you to take this away from us, and we are sorry for making this poor choice. And it brought us closer together. But there was definitely something always kind of underlying that we needed to address, and I'm really grateful that we
She's a pro-life singer who made quite a splash at this year's Grammy Awards. Her new album rocketed to the top of the charts. She hand-painted her own sonogram of a baby she gave up for adoption onto a wedding dress and wore it proudly on the red carpet at the Grammys. Her purse read, "Choose Life." And now we're joined by the recording artist from New York. Welcome to the program, Joy. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell me why you decided to share your pro-life views in the form of fashion for the Grammys in such a big way.
Well, for me, the red carpet is something I use for my value system. I decided that, you know, I really want to be an activist for the things I hold dear, and I am proudly pro-life. I am a woman who is not ashamed to talk about that. I've had a personal experience with it, and I really wanted to share love and choosing life over death, and I think it needs to be talked about a lot more.
What do you say to critics who say you just wanted publicity because you're a singer?
Well, I would say, first of all, everyone wants publicity when they are a singer, so that's not untrue.
That is true. Okay.
That's what the red carpet is for. But I'd like to use the publicity for something positive, which is why I chose a positive message this time at the Grammys. I wanted to showcase love. I chose a personal message, And I really wanted to bring light to something that's not talked about. We never see pro-life issues talked about. And it really is an issue. And it's something that's important.
I did a commentary on just that after the Grammys when I saw you go by, and it actually was picked up by some media. You referenced your life experience that led you to defend the unborn. Tell us a little bit more about that.
About 10 years ago, I found myself unwed in an abusive relationship that was really hard. The father of my child, I found myself pregnant, and the father descended into drug abuse and physical abuse, so I knew I had to get out of there. I went to the doctors to get the pregnancy test when I thought I was pregnant, and the nurse told me I should get an abortion. She told me flat out, you are too young to be pregnant. I just turned 20. She said, you need to get an abortion. It's the answer. It'll make it all go away. It's easy. There was a lot of pressure. We can do it now. It's free. And I walked out of there crying because I knew that that baby's life deserved to be lived. And I knew that that child needed to have a second chance at life, or a first chance at life. So I chose adoption, and I adopted my baby out to a beautiful, loving family. It's an open adoption, so I get to see her, I get to know her. She calls me Mama Joy. And for me, it was a celebration of life in a situation that was really a crisis and something really hard. And that's why I encourage women to do that, to choose life, and to look at other options besides death, like abortion.
And you have